Ferrari has just revealed a brand new hypercar. Well, sort of. It's actually a digital concept car you'll be able to drive in Gran Turismo 7. But Ferrari said this car shows what future Ferrari racing cars and road cars will be like. I'm talking about cars such as the long-awaited LaFerrari successor. But that's not all. I've also found Ferrari painting images that shows it's also working on a new car that's completely different from everything it's done before. And in this video, I'm going to give you all the juicy details. And I'm going to show you renders of what Ferrari's secret project could look like. Anyway, I'm Matt Watson, and you're watching Car Wow. Buy, sell, car wow. Lots of car makers have designed concept cars for the Gran Turismo video game, but they usually end up being so futuristic that they'd never work in real life. For example, Dodge came up with a 400-mile-an-hour hypercar in 2015 that was powered by a V10 and a pneumatic hybrid system. I have no idea how that was supposed to work, but since then these concepts have started to become a lot more realistic. McLaren even made an actual production car based on its GT concept called the Solus GT, and I think Ferrari could be about to do the same with its new Gran Turismo concept. It could inspire a car to finally replace the iconic LaFerrari. You see, the Vision Gran Turismo concept uses the same 3-litre twin-turbo V6 engine as the new hybrid 499p racing car. Ferrari just revealed that car, and it'll start racing it next year in the World Endurance Championship, including events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's very rare for Ferrari to build a racing car like this, but when it does, it almost always uses parts from the racing car in future road cars. For instance, the flat 12 engine in the Testarossa can trace its roots back to the 312 racing cars from the early 1970s. Then there was the Ferrari 333 SP, which raced from 1994 until the early 2000s. It had a carbon fibre chassis and a 4-litre naturally aspirated V12 with 650 horsepower. This engine started life in a Formula 1 car. Ferrari tweaked it for the Le Mans car, and then it fitted it to the Ferrari F50 supercar. But don't go thinking Ferrari will just stick a few number plates on the new 499p and get a lunch. The amount of power that racing car makes is limited by a ton of regulations. Ferrari will go up against hypercars from loads of other brands, including Toyota, Peugeot, Porsche and Cadillac, BMW and Lamborghini as well. And to make sure all these cars can race against each other competitively, the rules say they can have a maximum of 680 horsepower. That's including the power they get from their electric motors and hybrid systems. But these rules don't apply to road cars, obviously. So if Ferrari wants to make a new LaFerrari replacement with bits from the 499p, it can have as much power as it wants. And this is where the Vision Gran Turismo concept comes in. Ferrari probably won't build a car that looks exactly like that. After all, the concept only has one seat, but it gives you an idea of the sort of power figures Ferrari could be looking at with its next hypercar. The Vision Gran Turismo is supposed to have the same basic 3-litre V6 as the 499p racing car, but Ferrari has digitally modified it to produce 1,030 horsepower and 900 newton meters of torque. As well as that, the Vision Gran Turismo has a 3-motor hybrid system like you get in the current SF90 Stradale. That car has an electric motor at the back to help drive the rear wheels, but it has 2 extra motors under the bonnet to drive the front wheels. These give the car an extra 220 horsepower and they make it all-wheel drive. The Vision GT's hybrid system cranks out much more power than the one in the SF90 though. It makes 326 horsepower. This means the Vision GT car has 1,356 horsepower in total. That's more than any other Ferrari road car ever. Ferrari reckons this concept will accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds, and it will do 0 to 120 miles an hour in less than 5 seconds. Which is mad. To give you an idea how quick that is, the SF90 Stradale does 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.5 seconds, and it takes 6.7 seconds to do 0 to 120 miles an hour. But it might be a little while before Ferrari starts selling a LaFerrari replacement inspired by this Vision Gran Turismo car. After all, Ferrari has its hands full next year getting the Puro Sangue production line up and running, but it has found some time to work on a few secret projects that you probably don't know about. First up is an upgraded version of the SF90. This will probably be a hardcore track-focused special edition like the old 488 Pista. Here are some photos of a camouflage prototype being driven on the road. It looks pretty similar to the standard car at first, but there are lots of important differences. The front bumper has some new fins and splitters that you don't get on the normal road car, and there's a new U-shaped intake in the centre too. And above that, the bonnet has these new ridges that remind me of the old 488 Pista. This new SF90 also has wider side skirts than the standard car, and there's a flat rear windscreen and a new rear bumper with extra trim around the exhaust. Now, Ferrari hasn't confirmed any details about this new model yet, but this could be a very special car. It's possible that a faster SF90 could come with the hybrid system that Ferrari just teased with the Vision Gran Turismo concept. After all, both cars have a very similar tri-motor setup, but the concept has about 106 horsepower more than the standard SF90. Stick this tech into an SF90 and you could end up with more than 1,100 horsepower. Where could this extra power be coming from? Well, it could be some upgraded motors or a new battery. The current SF90 runs on 350 volts. That's slightly less than you get in most pure EVs. They tend to run at around 400 volts. Some high-performance electric cars like the new Rimac Nevera and Porsche Taycan step this up to between 700 and 800 volts. But Ferrari has developed a new electrical system for the new 499p racing car that runs at even higher voltage. It's based on the Curse technology from Ferrari's F1 cars, and it operates at a massive 900 volts. Why is the voltage so high? Well, a high voltage battery can be charged and discharged more quickly and more efficiently, so it can pump more energy into a motor to help it produce more power. This new system might not just appear in the new 499p and a special edition SF90, because Ferrari is also working on its first ever all-electric car. I know this sounds like blasphemy, it's probably going to be even more divisive than the pure sangue SUV. But the CEO of Ferrari said he expects 5% of Ferrari sales to be fully electric by 2026. That's only 4 years away. And here's a sneak peek at what I think this new electric car could look like. But how do I know this new electric car isn't some vague promise? Well, Ferrari has already registered a load of new patents for new electric car technology. This patent shows a car's chassis with a massive central battery pack. There are some battery cells underneath the floor, but most of the pack is behind the seats, where an engine would normally go in something like a 488. This is the same layout Porsche is going to use for the new electric Cayman and Boxster. That new Porsche will probably come with rear-wheel drive, but Ferrari could give its first electric car 4 motors and all-wheel drive, a bit like the Rimac Nevera. Ferrari has even patented a design for a modular drive system for quad-motor electric cars. But how much power is this sort of car going to have? Well, the most powerful electric car in a Ferrari right now isn't the SF90 or the new Vision Gran Turismo concept. It's actually the single motor in the hybrid 499p racing car that drives the front wheels. It makes almost 280 horsepower. That's 60 horsepower more than all 3 motors in the SF90 combined. If Ferrari decided to fit 4 of these motors to its new electric car, like in the patent, then it could have around 1,100 horsepower. That would make it the most powerful Ferrari ever made. It would have almost 140 horsepower more than the LaFerrari and 100 horsepower more than the current SF90. But how would a new electric Ferrari compare to that car in terms of performance? Well, the SF90 weighs in at 1,570 kilos and has 1,000 horsepower. Ferrari's first electric car is likely to be more powerful than that. That said, you can bet it will be lighter than something like a Tesla Model S Plaid. That car has 1,020 horsepower, but it weighs almost 2.2 tons. Despite that, I've still timed a Plaid from 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds, which is quicker than I did in the SF90. That means that if Ferrari's first EV has more power than the Tesla, but weighs less, then it should do 0 to 60 miles an hour quicker, possibly in less than 2 seconds. But will this new electric Ferrari be quicker than the Rimac Nevera? And do I need to call up Mate Rimac to organise a rematch? After all, his car absolutely destroyed a normal SF90 when I drag raced them last year. If you don't know what I'm talking about, click on the pop-out banner up there for the link in the description below to watch that video. It's the fastest time I recorded in any car over a quarter mile. Anyway, don't get your hopes up. The Rimac Nevera is a multi-million-pound hypercar with almost 2,000 horsepower. Ferrari's first EV might not be a limited edition hypercar. You see, Ferrari's flagship car at the moment is not the most powerful car it makes. It isn't even the quickest accelerating car it makes. It's the Daytona SP3. This costs more than £2 million, but it doesn't have a fancy hybrid system. It has an old-school naturally aspirated V12. This means it only has 840 horsepower, which is 160 horsepower less than an SF90. As a result, it does 0 to 60 miles an hour in 2.85 seconds, which is about 0.4 of a second slower than the SF90. Ferrari does plan to keep making cars with pure internal combustion engines, like the SP3, until 2030, possibly by designing them to run on synthetic fuels. But by then, Ferrari reckons only 20% of its car sales will come with a pure internal combustion engine. Everything else will be hybrid or electric. This means cars like the SP3 are going to become more and more exclusive, which means they'll probably get more and more expensive. The upside is that Ferrari's other hybrid and electric cars are probably going to become more mainstream. There's a chance that Ferrari EV might end up being much cheaper than the multi-million-pound LaFerrari and Daytona SP3. Although, because it's a Ferrari, you'll still have to jump through a few hoops just to get your name on the list, no matter how rich you are.